Inshallah, today we're doing lesson 6 of our Tajweed course, and we're going to look at the letter Ra, which in our PDF is going to be lesson 13. And the surah we're going to cover today is Surah An Nasr, which is Surah 110 in the Quran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to HealMyTajweed, helping you read. So if you've stumbled on this video, know that we've started a Tajweed course called Tajweed Made Easy, and I've done 5 previous lessons and with an introduction lesson to show where to get all the resources we're using and the structure and the curriculum for this type of course. So we're doing one Tajweed rule for one lesson per surah. And that way it's going to be easy bite-sized chunks for you to hopefully understand and implement, inshallah. So go ahead and check out the link below and also in the card above for those previous videos and the resources. Now for today's lesson, the letter Ra, when I was studying, my teachers told me this was by far the most difficult letter to get correctly because there are so many rules, so many exceptions and so many conditions. It's not possible to understand all of that within a couple of lessons. But as with anything which is difficult, you break them down into, bite-sized chunks that you can easily digest, then it's going to be easy with practice, inshallah. But do remember, these rules are just a guideline and you should get yourself a teacher to be able to explain and correct your pronunciation. Okay, so let's move on to the letter Ra. Now, with any Arabic letters, when it comes to Tajweed, the absolute first must is makhraj, proper understanding and implementation of all the articulation points. So with Ra, we have the tip of the tongue and the top tip of the tongue, which is the articulation point. Now it's close to Noon and Lam, as in these 3 letters kind of share a very similar articulation point, but the Ra is a bit more specific. For example, Noon is only the tip of the tongue, only touches the upper palate, but with the Ra is the tip and the top tip. Okay, so that's the first thing to bear in mind. Second thing to know, that every letter of the Arabic alphabet has what we call a sifaat, the characteristics. And 2 of the sifaat for the letter Ra are al-inhiraf and at-takrir or at-tikrar. Inhiraf means drifting away. What that means is, although the letter Ra, the initial makhraj comes from the top tip of the tongue, but as you pronounce Ra, the makhraj kind of leans away, it goes and it tries to go close to the makhraj of Lam. So much so that if you do pronounce it wrong, you're gonna, instead of saying Ra, you may end up saying La, as in Lam, okay, as in L. So that's one. The second thing is the tikrar or takrir, some people say. Now this is called repetition, and in Tajweed it means repeating something more than once. And there's a word for it in English also. We say for the Ra, it's called trilling, T-R-I-L-L-I-N-G. Now there's a tendency for people to get this wrong. They will either not do any tikrar at all or way too much tikrar. So there are 2 extremes. So let's say, for example, in the word Ar-Rahman, okay, if I say Ar-Rahman, Rahman, I'm almost saying Lam or I'm almost saying Wow, Ar-Rahman, Ra, and there is no beating of the tongue whatsoever. There was no repetition, and that is not the correct sifa for the letter Ra. Adversely, the opposite is to do way too much. And listen, Ar-Rahman, can you hear this? Ar-Rahman, way too much tikrar or repetition or trilling, or we call it. So it is very difficult to get this correct within the first few attempts, especially if you're not used to it. In fact, one exercise to get the Ra correct is to actually do the excessive because it's the tongue that beats. It has to beat up and down, at least once up and once down. It does the kind of touches up and down, so it makes this trilling sound. Do practice, okay? It takes a lot of practice. Some cultures are very good with Ra. I can think of the Spanish, for example. I've heard them say their Ra, which is really good, but it does take a lot of practice. But inshallah, we'll get there. I would advise you go in front of the mirror and try to practice your Ra, and your tongue will get dry. Do make sure you consume a lot of water while you're doing that, okay? Inshallah. Okay, inshallah. So let's open our PDF on page 17, and it's going to be lesson 13, the letter Ra. Do bear in mind, this is only the first part of the letter Ra. There are some further notes at the end of this book, which we're going to cover later, inshallah. But for this first part, there's two main tajweed rule I want you to take away from it. So the first one is when you have the haraka on top, so whether you have a fatha, kasra, dhamma, what to do. And the other one is when you have a sakin or sukoon on top of the letter ra. Please remember, this is not an ultimate rule. There are many exceptions and conditions to the letter ra. So this is a general guidance only at this time. Okay, so let's go for it. So lesson 13, page 17, the letter ra. If you see a fatha, zabar or dhamma page on the letter ra, or on the letter before the ra, if the ra is sakin, then it will be read full mouth. Don't worry, it gets a bit confusing. I'll explain in a minute. If you see a kasra zair on the ra or on the letter before the ra, if the ra is sakin, then it will be read empty mouth. So let's break this down. Okay, two things. Number one, if you have a fatha or a dhamma on the letter ra, you're going to make your mouth heavy. Okay, it's going to become a heavy letter. Now ra is one of those letters which is sometimes heavy and sometimes not heavy, or light or flat, and fatha and dhamma on top of it will make it heavy. Example, rabbuka, rabbuka. Okay, not rabbuka but ra. You make your mouth kind of circular, drop your jaw, rabbuka, rabbuka. Okay, now for ru, it's more easy to do, but you can still do rusul, rusul. See, rusul. Okay, now when you have a kasra for a ra, then it will be flat. So ra kasra is ri. See, smiley face, ri, not ri. Don't say ri. So some students that will do min sharri, 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 wrong. Min sharri, see, flat, sharri, ri. Okay, sharri. So that's what the first part means. Now for the second part is when you have a sukoon or sakin on top of the ra. If you have a fatha or dhamma on the letter before the ra sakin, then you're going to read the ra with a heavy mouth. Example, look at the second word, alif fatha ra sukoon, so ar. So you go ar, not ar but ar. Okay, I hope that's clear. Ar. And also don't make the alif heavy here. Don't say ar, no, because alif is flat. Ar. Next example, in the next word, udhkur. See, udhkur, kur, not kur but kur. Udhkur. So I hope that's clear. Now it does get more complicated later on when you have a fatha on a ra, which is at the end of a word, or a dhamma or a kasra, but you're going to stop or pause on that word. So usually what happens is the ra or any letter is going to take a sukoon. But even if you have a dhamma or fatha on a ra and you're going to pause on it, it doesn't matter what's on the ra, because the ra will become a sukoon. Then you look at the letter before the ra to see whether it has a fatha or dhamma or kasra. Okay, so let's take an example here on this word, minan nari. Okay, now ra has a kasra. So usually if you read this word and you will not pause or stop on this word, the ra kasra will be read flat, minan nari, ri. Okay, but if you pause on the word or if you stop on the word, the ra kasra will become a ra with a sukoon or sakin. In that case, it doesn't matter what is on the ra, but you look at the letter before the ra and you look at the haraka before the ra. So in this word, the first haraka we see before the ra, I mean there's an alif, so that doesn't count. So you have a noon, shadda and a fatha. So you've got a fatha, which means that's the rule that takes precedence. So the ra needs to be read with a heavy sound if you pause or stop. Minan nari, if no pausing, ri. But if pausing, minan nar, because of the fatha. Similarly, if you have a dhamma before the ra with a sakin, then it will also be heavy. And this is where it can get a bit complicated, because with a normal fatha kasra dhamma, then it's heavy or light and it's easy. But when there's a sakin or it becomes a sakin, then it's the letter before that's important. It can be confusing. Inshallah, with practice you will get there. Okay, let's look at the examples today. Here we have the first word, ra, rabbuka, so heavy. Ra fatha, rabbuka, heavy. arsala, like I mentioned before, the ra here is going to be heavy. Why? Because alif has a fatha. The ra has a sukoon, so we look at the letter before. Alif has a fatha. So arsala, arsala. Be also careful not to make the alif heavy. Don't say arsala. Okay, it's arsala. Next word, you have uzkur, uzkur. The ra will be heavy. Why? Because of the dhamma before it. Uzkur. So full mouth, if fatha or dhamma on ra or before. Very clear. Now, next set, we have empty mouth if kasra on the ra or before the ra. So first word, rihla. Okay, not ri, but rihla. Rihlatu, rihlatu. Next, again flat, rijalun. Rijalun, not ri, but rijalun. And the last word, hijri, and not hijri. Okay, in this one, if you pause on it, it will also be same thing, hijr, because the ra has a sukoon, the letter before it has a sukoon, so we don't count that. We look at the first haraka before the letter, or the last haraka before the letter ra, and in this case it will be a kasra on the letter ha. So hijr. Okay, right. So next section, take a look at these examples and figure out which are full or empty mouth. First word, tusharuna. So ra dhamma, that means heavy. Tusharuna, heavy. Next word, akhi, ra fatha, heavy. Akhirati. And next word, we've covered it before. Let's read it without pausing. Minan nari, and if pausing, minan nar, ra becomes heavy. Minan nar. Okay. Next, mursaluna, because ra has a dhamma before it. Okay, ra sakin, dhamma before it, heavy. Mursaluna. Next, ra flat, because kasra before it. Fir'auna. And the last one, mim fatha, ra sukoon, heavy. Marqadina. And again here, don't make the mim heavy. Don't say more. No, it's not. Mim is going to be flat. Marqadina. Okay. Alright, so that was the first part. Very easy. We're going to have the next part, inshallah, at the end of the course. Okay, inshallah, now let's go to the Surah An Nasr, which is 110 in the Quran. You can use the House of Quran app or your Mushaf or any other app, it's not a problem. Inshallah. So, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So, even in Bismillah, we have Ra in Rahman and Rajim. So, both the Ra is going to be heavy because of Fatha. First ayah, إِذَا جَاءَ Nasrullahi wal Fath. So ra with a dhamma, heavy. إِذَا جَاءَ Nasrullahi wal Fath. Ra heavy. Nasrullahi wal Fath. Next. Wa ra fatha, heavy. Wa ra'ayta. So here, be careful, don't make the alif after the ra heavy. Don't say wa ra'ayta, or don't say wa ra'ayta. So wa ra'ayta. Wa ra'ayta an-nasa yadkhuluna fi dinillahi afwaja. And last ayah. Fasabbih bihamdi rabbika. Ra here is heavy. Rabbika wastaghfirhu. Now we can pause here. Now this is a trick word for many students. Many students pause here and they will forget to pronounce the ha at the end, because if you pause here, the ha will become a sukoon. So many of them say wastaghfir without the ha. It has to be wastaghfir. There's a bit of ha with a sukoon, bottom third ha. Don't forget that. This means his forgiveness, and it's very important. If you do miss the ha out, it's a major mistake, because you're missing a letter, you're changing the meaning of that word. Okay, so wastaghfir. But the ra here is going to be what? Heavy or light? It's light, because kasra before the ra with a sukoon on the fa. Wastaghfir. And innahu kana tawwaba. Okay, very easy. I mean, here there was not a lot of problems in terms of weird ruling on the ra. Like we said, this is a very basic introduction to the letter ra and its tajweed rules, and there are many conditions to come, inshallah. Okay, so now we're going to listen to our brother Imam Yahya reciting Surah An Nasr.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا.
So alhamdulillah, this is the end of today's lesson. As a recap, we covered the letter ra and we explained that if there's a dhamma or fatha on a ra, it will be read with a full mouth. But if there's a kasra, it will be read with a flat or empty mouth. Now, if you have a ra with a sukoon on it, you look at the last haraka that comes before the ra with a sukoon. For example, hijri, you look at ha with a kasra. Or minan nari, but this time because ra has a kasra, but the letter before has a fatha, which means the ra becomes a sukoon when you pause or stop on it. So you read the ra with a heavy mouth. Minan nar. Okay, that is a bit tricky. Please get a teacher to correct you. Many students struggle on this and it takes them a long time to know what is going to be flat, what is going to be heavy, inshallah. So in our next lesson is going to be lesson 7, and we're going to cover the lesson 5 in our PDF, which is going to be on page 12, and we're going to cover the lengthen for 2 to 3 seconds, otherwise known as the mud rule, one of the mud rules. So it's going to be about between 4 and 5 beats, and the surah we're going to cover is Surah Al Kafiroon, Insha Allah. Alhamdulillah, this is the end of today's lesson. As usual, if there's any mistake, this is from me and from shaitan, but if there's any goodness from it, it comes from Allah. If you do see any mistakes, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us so we can correct them. As usual, this is a guide only. Please find yourself a decent teacher who's going to correct your tajweed. So like this video, leave us a comment below and share with anyone who you think might benefit. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing so you can encourage us to do further videos. This was Ash from HealMyTajweed, helping you read. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.